We often hear that difficult times forge character, that the struggle itself builds us into stronger, better versions of ourselves. But the psychological reality is different. Pressure reveals what already exists. Whatever has been quietly growing in the dark is simply dragged into the light the moment life becomes difficult. The 14th chapter of the Gospel of Mark serves as a primary case study for this. On the night before his execution, Jesus and his inner circle are thrust into the same high-stakes environment. Every person in the room faces identical external stress. This is a stress test for the human soul. When a uniform weight is applied to different individuals, their hidden internal architecture is forced to the surface. Those with hidden fault lines fracture, while a solid foundation remains steady. Mark 14 acts as a mirror. It strips away the polished versions of ourselves and asks who we actually become when the pressure rises and our security vanishes. When sudden pressure hits, the most common human response is a desperate grasp for control. We instinctively move to protect our status and our safety. The religious leaders in this narrative illustrate this. Despite a lifetime of studying scripture, they prioritized their social standing over the truth. They chose to eliminate a threat to their position rather than face an uncomfortable reality. Then there is Judas. His decision to hand Jesus over for silver appears sudden, but betrayal is rarely a spontaneous event. Betrayal begins with quiet compromises, a nurtured resentment, or a desire that becomes more important than integrity. These hollow us out while outward appearances stay the same. When the weight of a crisis drops, the collapse looks instantaneous. In reality, the foundation was already gone. Peter demonstrates a different way to fail, the illusion of self-reliance. Peter makes a bold, sincere promise to never abandon Jesus. But his confidence was built on his own willpower. When the pressure hit, that self-assurance crumbled, leading him to deny his friend 3 times before the sun rose. Relying on our own perceived strength makes us vulnerable. When we try to control the outcome through our own determination, we find ourselves without a foundation when a true crisis hits. A different response to pressure appears in the woman with the alabaster jar. She pours out an entire jar of expensive perfume over Jesus. To the others in the room, this looks like a waste, an impractical, emotional outburst that ignores the practical needs of the poor. She stopped measuring her life by what it costs and started measuring it by what love requires. She gives lavishly, no longer calculating the risk. This posture of letting go leads to Gethsemane. Jesus does not meet his execution with a stoic mask. He experiences overwhelming sorrow and asks for a way out of the suffering. But in the quiet of the garden, he makes a specific choice. He abandons his own will to trust a larger plan, speaking the words, "Not what I will, but what you will." Surrender is not the magical disappearance of fear. It is the refusal to let that fear become the voice that guides our decisions. The results of that private surrender in the garden become visible the moment the trial begins. Jesus faces false accusations and public lies, yet he remains silent. He offers no defense and makes no attempt to correct the misunderstanding. Because he had already surrendered his life and the outcome to God, the accusations have nowhere to land. He no longer carries the burden of protecting his image. His silence is the byproduct of a heart anchored in a security that doesn't depend on his circumstances. Most of us, however, will find ourselves more like Peter, failing the test and realizing our own weakness when the pressure becomes too much. When the rooster crows and Peter realizes his failure, he doesn't make excuses or harden his heart. He breaks down in tears. This honesty is the starting point for change. God does not ask for the curated, perfect version of ourselves. He heals the heart that is willing to return in humility. When life becomes uncertain, where do you instinctively run for security? True victory isn't found by gripping our lives tighter. It is found the moment we finally choose the path of opening our hands.